Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to continue with our media availabilities for today. We are now joined by Austin Cindric, driver of the number 2 Ford for Team Penske. Austin, you've driven here at Daytona in a number of different disciplines. Can you talk to us a little bit about what makes Daytona so special?
Hello. When you first think of Daytona, you think of Daytona 500, no doubt. I think the race, though, for me that definitely started it here was the Rolex 24. Just kind of as a teenager, pounding the pavement, trying to find something to drive. So it was definitely surreal for me to win a Daytona 500 before I win a Rolex 24. I think that's always what I kind of go back to. So even going back to that event every year and definitely trying to win both. But yeah, it's a special place for a lot of people and for a lot of reasons, and I think that's why race fans come to it so often.
Awesome. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. If you have one for Austin, please raise your hand and we'll get a mic over to you. We'll start down here with Lee and then go to Jacob and then go to Nate.
Lee Spencer, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio and CatchFence.com. I'm curious what you cooked this week on the hill because I hated to miss that, but I thought it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I learned quite a bit about some Italian cooking. I think that I can handle myself well in the kitchen, but not necessarily like over the top. I guess it was called spadini, which I thought was essentially an Italian burrito. So it was pretty interesting. I'm not the greatest with knives, and you gotta butterfly the chicken breast, and then you gotta pound it thin and wrap it in a bunch of stuff. So it was good. Turned out great. It was. I think it's probably on the short list of restaurants I'll probably come back to when we go there in a couple weeks. So it was a fun experience. I don't get to cook as much as I'd like to during the season because I'm hardly ever home. So it's good to kind of branch out and learn new things.
Go to Jacob.
Jacob Seelman, Raceface Digital, Austin. We know there are certain qualities that are always going to make Daytona and the draft difficult to win in general, but what is it about the summer race that makes it difficult to win contrast to the 500? Is it the shorter length, the heat just making handling that much more important, or what have you experienced that makes this race uniquely difficult to win compared to the opener?
Yeah, I think when you compare and contrast the two, I think it's probably a different brand of desperation that it kind of is throughout the field. I think for the 500, there's probably a higher respect for what the win means, whereas here it's just kind of all out, whatever it takes for a good half of the field. But to your point about what makes the two races different, we did have a pretty hot 500 this year, so I would say there's probably going to be more similarities to the 500 than maybe in years past when it's 60 or 50 degrees later into the evening. So I definitely expect handling to matter. I expect the lane choice to be pretty fluid, and that makes decision making pretty difficult for guys in the pack to figure out where they want to be, and usually general confusion causes wrecks or contact or whatever else. So I think it usually takes a while throughout this race for everyone to kind of get their bearings on where their car is, where they need to make it better, but also strategically where to place themselves.
We'll come here in the front to Nate.
Austin, Team Penske is sort of a unique situation among multi-car teams going into tomorrow night because you have all your cars in the playoffs and everybody else. Now Gibbs has one, Hendrick has one. Everybody else is going to be trying to, I think, to marshal their forces to ensure their other car is in. Two-part question. Does that help you guys at all, or does it complicate things that everybody else is going to be like so alliance focused? Maybe like I've got another part, but how does that impact? How do you think Penske works tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think as far as what's best for the company, any way we can get playoff points, it's pretty simple, no different than the other week. Like if one of us can win stages and win races, that only helps all of us into the playoffs, all four of us. So, but otherwise, I think the only other main priority, Ryan's got a great chance to get up to second in points, which is obviously a ton of playoff points, whereas Joey and I don't really have that opportunity. So I'm not saying the priority will be Ryan, but if we can get Ryan points don't really matter for me regular season wise. So I think that's really the only thing that kind of falls in the category of, what else is out there. But I think otherwise, if we can't get one of us a win, having another Ford in the playoffs is a big deal. So do our best to try and contribute to that cause.
Does how those other teams kind of like work to protect like whatever car they're trying to get in, is that going to impact things at all? Do you think, or?
I mean, I definitely make sure as a competitor to keep myself as educated as possible on what everybody's priorities are, because you have to understand the decision making of those around you to make your own decisions. So there's definitely a ton of priorities, throughout the field, and who cares about points, who doesn't, and who just needs to win, and who has the experience enough to win versus who doesn't. And it's a super interesting dynamic as a competitor to kind of overview this. Whereas like maybe Daytona 500 is a little simpler. You just know everybody wants to win, and that's kind of it.
And then last one, Ford has led, I think, over half the laps on drafting tracks with next gen. So while Penske has all its cars in, obviously Ford is still looking for other cars in the playoffs. Any marching orders in terms of helping the RFK cars or front row cars if possible? Or?
I think just highly encouraged, right? I mean, we can obviously help our own playoff situations with the cars that are already in the playoffs, but otherwise, I mean, if one of those guys is in position to win, I mean, that's a huge deal to have more Fords in the playoffs. So if I have a choice to push a Ford or a different manufacturer across the line, I'm pushing that Ford every time, no doubt.
We'll come here in the middle to John and then to Greg.
John Newby, Savage Ventures. So you said a couple weeks ago that you had the luxury of being kind of in playoff mode now because you had been locked in since Talladega, and then you went out and finished 5th. So I was curious, where is the status of that whole playoff mode with your team and kind of whittling in on all the different things you needed to get figured out for Darlington?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into that, but I think it's just pressure on execution. Where maybe others don't have the luxury of going out and just trying to go for a win every week, because that's the situation they're in. Whereas the focus for the first 2 rounds of the playoffs has to be how well do you execute, how well do you keep yourself in the game, and that's what the playoffs are all about. I really feel like for the round of 16, the round of 12. So, and if having that execution generates good finishes, good things to come. I think for our group. So obviously last weekend was a great example of really good execution top to bottom and really good speed. So you got to keep that going. I think that's not a highlight. I would say that's a necessity to have a life in the playoffs for us.
Greg Engel, Cupscene.com and Forbes. I'm curious, the schedule came out this week. Do you know about it? Do you guys know about it before we know about it? Does NASCAR come to you at all, or is it just as much a surprise to you and everybody else?
I get an email 2 minutes before the press release comes
Okay.
out, which you guys might get that same email. I don't know. They know, but I've probably already missed the email by the time I've seen the tweet. So.
And on that same kind of vein, when you look at the schedule, do you look at it from a personal standpoint of, oh, wow, we're going back to Chicago and this is cool and that, or is it more of a strategic kind of, okay, we got to focus on this track, or now these 2 tracks are going to be together, and maybe that's something you do with the team strategically, or right now you just focused on this year? Yeah,
I live week to week during the season, so I would say it's definitely something as we kind of do our end of year review, kind of look at and segment along, okay, we have X amount of intermediates kind of in a row here. This is going to be a good gauge for where we're at and what we can do and try, and kind of the relevancy and top of mind. But otherwise, I think the only quick glance is you look at where the off week is, and then you see that there's 2, and you're like, yes. And I think honestly, but I think that's super important in the way it's staggered too. Like, the way we had it this year, having it on Easter is great, but like, you're kind of just getting into the rhythm of the season, and then you have the grind all the way until and through November, whereas next year we also have one kind of right before the playoff push starts and everyone kind of gets to reset, because the summer does become a grind. It's interesting because for whatever reason, like whether if it's going out and promoting races or doing events with sponsors, like everything happens during the summer, to where like it's not just the summer stretch of driving, but also the summer stretch of like promoting and being obviously an ambassador for your partners. All that seems to all happen at once during the summertime. So it's pretty easy to get burnt out. And this is coming from a guy that has no family or kids or a dog or anything else. It's just like, if I'm not at my house, I'm not letting anybody down. So it's a lot harder on others than just me, but I think for the guys and anyone that really travels, as I'm sure you all know. So I think that's exciting, but also, the addition of some tracks and kind of things shifting around are obviously highlights. And the one thing I didn't see was trucks going to St. Pete. I'm very jealous. That was always a favorite event for me.
You weren't alone in that.
I know. I don't know if I look at it as that's an event that, like, I don't know if I'll ever get to drive that track again. It's not like if I want to go to Laguna Seca, like I can go do a track day at Laguna Seca, like I can go get my fix. Whereas like they're not going to board up the streets of St. Petersburg just for me. Like I'm going to have to go be in a car and race somewhere. So anyway, that's yeah, no, I'd like to. That'd be cool, but definitely a cool addition.
We'll come down here to Roy and then back to Lee.
Yeah, Austin, Roy Akers, Skyview Sports. Taking a look at the schedule, do you have anything in the back of your mind where you're thinking I'd rather go to a destination type race like San Diego or an older track race like North Wilkesboro being a points race, or maybe another track coming on someday? Do you have a wish list, or do you have a thought or preference or anything?
Now you're starting to ask for my opinions, and those don't matter. So there's a ton of racetracks in North America that I think we would all love to go to, whether if those are short tracks or road courses or street circuits. But there's a long list. But I think NASCAR has done a really good job of creating a mixture, but also not being afraid to try new things. And I think our fan base really relates to that as well, because it's something fun and new to watch. Even if it's not like a home run, it's still going to make you tune in and think about it and have everyone talking about it. So, I think having Chicagoland back on the schedule, I think will really suit this car. I think everyone could kind of agree with that. And obviously, it's been a while since we've been there, so it'll be interesting to see what that track's like and how it's aged. Hey, that's why I'm here.
Austin, how counterintuitive is it to save fuel at a place like this when you're used to matting the gas?
I don't know. I guess at this point it's not overly counterintuitive, but you look at other forms of racing, Indy 500, for example. I feel like that race plays out no differently. I think just how you use your current situation in the race to your advantage, or your situational awareness, and what's tough to cover, I feel like, is that everybody's situation is different. Like a lot of times, like everybody isn't saving fuel or saving the same amount of fuel or doing the same tactics. So there's a lot of things that are probably really difficult to cover as far as what goes on. But it just emphasizes the pit cycles and what's important about that. But you have a caution and everything changes.
You think some drivers are better at it than others?
I think it's subjective. Like I said, it's situation based. Like just because I made a better fuel number, like I saved more gas, I had a better gas mileage, does not mean I'm going to gain positions from it. I'm not guaranteed that. It's a play for track position, it's a play for lane choice, and when you add the element of handling that you'll have on Saturday night, it's just another factor that complicates your decision making. So I think it is key to expecting to be towards the front of the field to have that in your playbook.
And having won at Gateway last year, but it now being in the first round, how happy were you to see that? And, you feel like it almost kind of gives you a bump because you and Blaney were both really good there last year?
Yeah, no, our team, for whatever reason, really has been strong at that racetrack. I do feel like it suits, our engine package with Ford Mustang and Roush Yates. So I feel like there's no reason why we can't go back and have some strengths, but we have different tire there this time, and obviously a different time of year as well. And it's a fun racetrack for sure. It's very unique compared to other tracks of that size on the schedule. So, but Darlington, Southern 500, having that before that race, and then Bristol afterwards. You can look at St. Louis as a race everyone wants to have a base hit at, because the other two are so unpredictable. And I feel like after Darlington, 2 or 3 guys in the playoff grid are already in dire straits. So it's kind of about getting there and still having the freedom to go push hard instead of being savings mode. Mm-hmm.
We'll take one final question here in the back.
Scotty Sprinkle, Raceface Digital. As somebody who's really good at this style of race in Austin, and we've seen the fuel saving seems to get more and more extreme every time we go to Super Speedway, with everyone below the cut line's a must win. Do you envision some of the guys kind of pushing harder and not wanting to lag back as much to save fuel? Do you think we'll see more of a mix of some guys that are trying to be safe, fuel saving more, a couple guys pushing harder and things like that? Or do you think it'll kind of stay more par for the course where mostly everybody's trying to save fuel a lot and there's a lot of 3 wide riding around saving for a little bit?
Yeah, you just described what's difficult about my job for this weekend. No doubt. I mean, if I had the answer, I'd probably go out and win the race. So I think that all shifts, right? Because they're all human-based decisions. Whether if it's because I sat in some meeting with my manufacturer and we all decided we're going to do this, or I sat in a meeting with my team and we all decided we're going to do this, or I drive for a single car team and I'm going to do whatever I want, or I'm tired of saving fuel and I'm just going to go to the front and hope a caution comes out or whatever else. There's a million ways to do it. And that's why I like to say that it is very situational about where you're at, where you're running, where you restarted, how your car is handling, all the things, what gives you the highest percentage chance of going for it. But there have definitely been shifts of guys, pushing different strategies to try and, think outside the box. And I do feel like we have a lot of versatility with the fuel mileage that we make, and with the speed in our cars, that we can make most of those things work. And when people ask me what's made us so good at speedway racing, I'm telling you it's because I have a fast race car. So I'm pretty confident my guys have built me another fast race car for this weekend, and hoping that we can get the strategy right, read the field, and understand what it takes to be up at the front.
All right, Austin, thanks for your time and good luck this weekend.
Thank y'all.